Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful evening with the Virtual Tasting Society. I'm Jane Kilkenny. I'll be hosting this evening as Vadim is traveling once again. Tonight, we're joined by Andrew Mustard of Meikle Toir, along with Sam Filmus from Impex Beverages. Thank you, everyone, for showing up tonight. Most of you know the drill. Please keep yourself on mute to minimize background noises, but feel free to unmute and ask questions. We're here to get nerdy and learn things. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And Andrew, take it away.
There we go. Thank you very much, Jane. And yeah, just express your words. Thanks a lot, everyone, for dialing in this evening with you guys. And yeah, thank you to Impex, to Sam, for sending out samples, arranging samples, etc., so everyone can join in and yeah, go through the whiskies kind of all together. So, no, as Jane said, I would say if anyone has any questions or feedback or so, by all means, just yeah, if you want, whether you can ask a question there and then, or stick something into the chat on the side. You like to make these things as, I would say, casual as possible, turn them into conversation. So, and if there's a question that I don't have the answer to, I will chase it up for you and get a contact and reply to you instead of digging myself a hole and keep digging. So, no, any questions, please ask. So that's the best way to find out. And we also have a running order at the side that Sam's put on in the chat. But basically, the first whiskey will be the Whiteheader 15, then we'll move to the McNair's 12, and then we'll get started into the Meikle Toir, the main event. So, by no further ado, we can get started with the first one, which is our Whiteheader 15-year-old. So, if you want to, give your glass, give it a nose, give it a taste, see what you think, see what you're picking up, and we can just go through a bit of the background of the story of the company. As Whiteheader 15, or Whiteheader in general, the label was a brand that was around in the 70s and 80s. And yeah, it was a blend, as the industry was dominated back then and still is nowadays by blends, blended Scotch. And yeah, it was found across the UK, into Europe, Australia, Northern America. I've met people in Canada that they recognise the bottle, the label. And Whiteheader in Scottish language means it brings good luck. Heather is obviously a flower we find on the rolling hills, the moors of Scotland. It's usually purple green. And the story going, if you find a white piece of Whiteheader, it brings you good luck. So the marketing slogan back in the day was, if you find a bottle of Whiteheader, it brings you good luck. So we wanted to bring this brand back to life. So we'll run through a bit of a history lesson of Meikle Toir, of Glenallachie Distillery, which is where Billy Walker purchased the distillery off of Shivers Brothers. So we're in the heart of Speyside. So moving away from the Glenallachie single malt, Billy Walker, when he inherited Glenallachie Distillery in 2017, he also inherited the Whiteheader label off of Pernod Ricard, off of Shivers, which had lain dormant for a number of years. They weren't really doing anything with it. And Billy decided, as a blender at heart, he decided to bring this brand back to life. So the whiskey itself is just a great example of what a blended Scotch could be. It's not too, I would say, not too overpowering. It's not too, it's really just what a blend should be. It's a very easy way of describing it, but it's a mixture of, getting into the nitty gritty of it all. It's a mixture of, obviously grain whiskey and single malt whiskey. So the single malt whiskey is almost a 50-50, but it's around, I think, 47% grain whiskey, and then the malt is made up from single malts from Speyside, obviously Glenallachie. There's another one in there as well, and then there's some Highland malt in there, and then there's about 4-5% of an Islay single malt in there as well. So there's a lot of different characteristics from the whiskey itself there in the background, but then there's also the different cask influences coming from your sherry, your PX Oloroso, but also your virgin oak, but also from your bourbon. So there's a huge amount of different styles of whiskey, different characteristics from the different types of casks potentially going on there, but it works well just mixing, blending them together. Showcases the quality of all the spirit, but showcases the quality of the master blender of Billy Walker and the rest of the production guys at the distillery. So it should be pretty laid back, pretty gentle. I've poured myself one just now. It's acceptable to have at 3 a.m. So, but no, pretty. It's easy going. A nice one to, whether it's one to have sort of in the kitchen cupboard or one to have at the start of a tasting. It's great to just get the palate going. So, a question I would have just now for you guys is, who is, even do a raise of hands, who is picking up the peated notes at all? They're very, very delicate in the background, but some people do and some people don't, which is always interesting. So some nods, which is good. Because with this, it's funny, sometimes you do a tasting or people talk about it and they don't believe there's a small amount of Islay single malt in there, the peat. But on occasion, it's amazing how your palate will change. Sometimes you do pick it up, and other times you got it's maybe not there, maybe is. That's the great thing about all whiskies is you go back and you try them over and over again, and they can change and develop. So it's always worth going back to. So, but no, this is a great one, as I said, to really just bring to the market, bring it back to life, but also great one to start off this evening. And this is also 46% ABV minimum, so 92 proof, which with us at Glenallachie, that's the minimum that we will ever bottle at. Anything with the Billy Walker signature on will be minimum 46%, which is something that we're pretty proud about, but also it's something within the industry. We don't chill filter, we don't add any color, so everything's natural, nothing's taken away, nothing's added. So if you bottle below 46%, you run the risk of hazing occurring in the bottle, which is something that, it maybe doesn't affect the flavor of the taste, but it just doesn't look good. So it's one that, if you had the choice of 2 bottles, one where hazing had occurred and one where it hadn't, you're obviously going to lean towards the clear, clean-looking bottle. So, and there we go. I would say, Jason, that's a pretty spot-on kind of summary of it. So good on you, just got top marks. So,
yeah, Jason's our resident expert.
There we go. You can come back, Jason.
Yeah, I can taste a little bit of the grain on it, and it's very floral. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of surprised by that, but this is just lovely.
It's
what a way to bring it back.
Yeah, it's floral, delicate, and I think we've basically, when we inherited the distillery, Billy had all the old kind of recipe books of white heather, and he thought, why not bring this to the market? We're not trying to flood any market with huge quantities or so. It's something that's a great introduction to blended Scotch. I would say sometimes in the marketplace, sometimes people look at blends and they get a negative response. They think of a Johnny Walker Red or whatever, but this, obviously 15 years old, that's the minimum that everything has to be. But there's some absolutely fantastic blends out there, and that's what the industry was really founded and created on. And it's as I said, a great way to great chance to bring this back to market. And we're very lucky that with Billy's connections within the industry, he managed to access stock from the different distilleries, different regions, to bring this blend kind of back to life. Obviously, if you're trying to buy stock from different distillers, different companies, they can sometimes be either very hesitant to sell it on, or they can be basically because they're not sure what you'll do with it, but also the rarity, the scarcity, so the price is very, very high. But I think Billy went to these distillers, these companies, and said, look, I'm bringing this brand back to life. I'm not going to be doing something weird and wonderful with your whiskey, so we'll kind of team together and we'll get things going, which is great. I think, as you said there as well, there, Jane, that you can feel the grain whiskey in there, and I would say you want to be able to feel it, because I think a lot of people think and see grain whiskey as a filler. It's there just to bulk it up and just to add in volume. But grain whiskey, if it's used correctly, is a great way of maturing a whiskey. It can sometimes be a little bit harsh, a little bit spicy, but that can be a good thing if it's used well with other cask types and other whiskey types. So
I can totally see that. I mean, that's like the toast part of the breakfast whiskey here.
exactly, there we go. I like that one. Yeah.
And it was funny that my initial on the nose, it was funny. The first thing I thought was Heather is absolutely the appropriate name for it, because that was right immediately on the nose. It felt like I was standing in a field with, in the middle of the heather in the high point of spring, just literally just surrounded by that. And it was such a great, the nose was so great. And it was really interesting, as I expected a lot of that in the palate, but that's how the palate shifted, and it wasn't as floral on the palate. It was that sherry and spice, not sherry spice, but sherry and spice. So like you said, there's the spiciness of the grain, but with, so it wasn't like that. Like sometimes when you have a sherry cask or a sherry finish, you have the spice that comes with sherry, but that wasn't the kind of spice that I was getting in the palate. It was the spice that comes with grain, but mixed with that overall sherry influence. And it was a great combination on the palate too.
No, it's no a good roundup there, Jason. And yeah, as I said, not just with us, but with any blend, you want to, the risk of using a lot of different cask types and whiskey characteristics, different spirits. The risk is that one dominates, whether that's the sherry dominates or the Speyside malt or the grain dominates, and that's what you don't want to happen with a blend or any whiskey if you're using different cask types. So that is the risk you run the risk of, but that shows the expertise of the whole production team at the distillery, but also Billy Walker. He's a guy that we'll touch on in a bit, but he's a guy who's got 52 years of experience of working in the industry and of blending. So we like to think he's got an idea of what he's doing. So we're pretty lucky, very lucky. I'm lucky to have him as a colleague, my boss, but I think the whole industry is pretty lucky to have him around kind of all day, every day in the company. So glad you guys enjoyed this first one. So any other feedback from anyone before we move to the next? So
I want to add something that Billy does that makes this blend so special. He brings the 12-year-old casks, put them together, then them being married, he puts them back in other casks for 3 years to get used to the wood, which is very unique method, and I'm pretty sure it's costly, but that's the result. We get some nice combination between, Highland malt, Speyside malt, some very high quality, as Andrew mentioned, grain, and good quality whiskeys, good quality casks like PX and Oloroso sherry, etc. So that's the result. Another thing which is unusual for blends that I see out there is that it's 46%, as you mentioned, and non-chill filtered natural color, which is super unique for blends.
yeah, no, good point there, Sam. And yeah, with this kind of dual maturation system, if you want to call it that, or the primary and secondary maturation, when we're doing this, again, it's probably is a more expensive way of doing things, but we want to give the whiskey the best chance possible. And as we said, and as Sam said, it's 15 years old. We proudly promote that on the bottle, on the case, and that will be the minimum of the youngest whiskey in there. There'll be some whiskies in there that will be a little bit older, as we like to give the casks the freedom to mature themselves. They're not, it's not as if we wait until they all hit their 15th birthday and then we ditch them there and then. We feel if some casks need maybe another, whether it's a month, 2 months, maybe more, then we give them that time to just really hit that sweet spot, as we talk about at the distillery and as Billy talks about. You want every cask that you're maturing, we have a rigorous kind of sampling regime. So we're looking at samples constantly, and you want just those casks to hit that sweet spot, as we talk about. And if you leave it too long, we talk about you can overcook them. and those notes become too overpowering, whether that's from the whiskey or whether that's from the oak itself. And with us, on all of our whiskies that we're trying tonight, anything again with the Billy Walker signature is we only use first fill or second fill casks. After that, we feel they're deemed not suitable for what Billy Walker's wanting to do. They'll be used within the industry. Some distillers, some companies will use casks 4 or 5 more times. But obviously, every time you fill and ditch a cask, you're stripping it from the inside of those initial characteristics, those compounds that really mature a whiskey in the way that we want to. Where, we feel that 70-75% of a whiskey's final flavour, aroma, etc., obviously colour comes from the wood. So I think it's definitely, it's not a surprise that it's something that we have a big focus on is our wood management, cask maturation. But I think nowadays a lot of other companies are now starting to almost, I would say, experiment with different styles of casks just to experiment to see what happens. But I think the appetite is there from the marketplace for people to see what happens when you put your whiskey into different styles of cask. So I would say if we're done with White Heather, we could potentially move on, if you want to the next whiskey, which is the McNair's Lumbrique 12-year-old. So again, give it a nose, give it a taste. And at this stage, I would say if you're able to leave a little bit of whiskey in your glass after each one, even if it's a couple drops, during the event, go back and nose the different whiskies, trial them in a different order, because it's amazing how they can change and develop over time. But and sometimes you'll pick up more notes. Obviously, we're tasting all peated whiskies, so your palate will change and develop. So I would say it's something's a little bit fun just yourself, just to see how things change. But this next one, as I said, is our McNair's Lumbrique 12-year-old, which again, this is a similar story to the White Heather in that when Billy Walker purchased the distillery, this McNair's blend's label was sitting dormant. Nothing was really being done with it. It was again a blend that was used a lot back in the day, 70s and 80s. Again, found across North America, found across the UK, again Australia. It's funny. It's much more hard to come across a bottle of McNair's, an old bottle of McNair's, compared to White Heather. I've seen a lot of original bottles of White Heather, but McNair's, the only bottle I've managed to come across is in a really small speakeasy bar in the middle of Tokyo, which the last place you would expect it to appear at all. So, which is quite interesting, really cool to see. And the old style blend was again a mixture of, it was also a blended Scotch, but it was also a blended malt. The one that I saw and tried in Tokyo was made with Canadian grain whiskey for some reason, which was very, very odd. But the majority of it, and this nowadays, is blended malt, so made up using just 100% single malts, which again is quite rare with blends. I say a lot of people look at blends and just jump at the blended Scotch. There is filler in there from your grain whiskies, but this 100% single malt, so obviously we're already off to a good start. And this is made from a mixture of just Speyside and Islay single malt. So there's no Highland in there, there's no grain. It is, it's not a direct 50-50 split between Speyside and Islay. I'd say there's probably a bit more Speyside than the Islay in there, but obviously we'll still get from here, you get on the nose straight away, it's peated. You can tell it's a lot more peated than the White Heather. And again, 46% ABV. This is matured in, initially, this being 12 years old, initially about 10 years in ex-bourbon, and then it is secondary maturation. It is then matured in a mixture of sherry, a little bit of red wine, and then a small amount of virgin oak. So again, a lot of different cask types, but with this, it's a great blend. Something that's is a bit punchy, but we want that. We want the Islay malts, the smokiness to come through, but it's not too intense. It's not medicinal. There's not big wafts of iodine that are punching you in the face that you sometimes get from other Islay malts, but it's no, a great way to kind of continue our journey this evening around peated malts, and it's a great way of just showing how Islay and Speyside, if you put them together, blend them together, make them work together, and what you can do. So
It's got an interesting note. It's like mace or nutmeg on the
yeah,
palate. Really,
yeah, I would get that.
tiny little bit of it, just but the peat on it is nice and smoky without, like you said, being too much iodine.
Mhm.
This
And I would say as well, I would say, Jane, I think, as you said, nutmeg there. I'm pretty sure on the back of the bottle with Billy Walker's tasting notes, there is nutmeg on his nose on it. So that's ring a bell. So there you go. You've got the palate of Billy Walker. So
Oh, well, I'd hope. That would be nice.
second, yeah, I know.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
For the people that doesn't follow the chat, this is a good one to follow the chat because Sam is posting the flyer for each of the whiskeys as we drink them, which is really cool. And it doesn't say nutmeg; it says gentle nutmeg.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Well,
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. No, this as a peat head, I'm a fan of this one. So.
No, and I think with this, I think when you talk about peated Scotch, some people, if they're not peat heads, they go, "Oh, I'm not really." In their head, they think, "Oh, I'm not a fan. It's going to be an Octomore, it's an Ardbeg, it's a Lafroig. It's going to be punchy, meaty, in your face." But they are great in their own instance. But people are new to peat. If you don't want to dive in straight away, so. Something like this is a great example of what you can do with both of them. And yeah, I would get on the nose, you get obviously your butterscotch, your heather honey coming through, it's mocha, a little bit of chocolate. But yeah, it's just all infused with that, I would say like a sweet peat reek. It's like we'll talk about a lot about campfire notes coming through, but it's a little bit of that as opposed to your intense medicinal, almost a punch in the face, which sometimes you get from a West Coast peat. So, but I think again with this similar story to what we talked about with the white heather, I think Billy thought it was a shame not to bring this to market. Just I think basically because he is as I said earlier, he's a blender at heart, so he likes to basically play trial and error in the lab, see what you can do, see what you can work with. And this comes in different age ranges. So we have a 10-year-old cast strength, which is a lot more, obviously younger, but cast strength is a bit more punchy. And then we have a 21-year-old as well. So the 12 is a nice kind of meeting ground between the two. But no, it's a great gateway into kind of what peated blended malt should be. So yeah, if people are maybe I'm sure everyone here is a fan of peat. Obviously, I have the lineup here. It's all 6 peated whiskies. But if you have a friend or colleagues or whatever, if you're maybe a bit unsure on the peated side of things, something like this is a great gateway into it.
To me, it's interesting because I've enjoyed a lot of peated whiskeys, and I have some. I think it was a Lagerwollen that did one that's finished in the PX cask, right? So you get that little sweetness. This one, the sweetness and peat is a completely different thing. It's you get the sweetness and then the peat, which is fascinating. It's really good.
And then we little bit as well, just about the name. Again, Lumreek. I'm sure some of you may have heard of it in the past or not, but Lumreek translates in Old Scots. It's chimney smoke, and we have a saying on New Year Hogmanay. There's a saying that on the 1st of January, people go what we call first footing. You go around your neighbours, you go in with a bottle of whiskey, share, have a drink together, and the saying is "Lang may your Lumreek," which means, or translates directly into "Long may your chimney have smoke in it," which just means kind of I hope your house has warmth for the year ahead. So, but can sometimes be a tricky one to translate for people if they're unsure. So, So no, there's just a bit of background on there. So, but I think if we're all good with the McNairs, anyone else have any feedback on that before we move to the Meikle Toir at all? I think we're good to go. So yeah, we can then move to the first of the 4 Meikle Toir SKUs, which the first one up is Meikle Toir the original. So if we can again give it a nose, give it a taste, see what you think. I would say maybe if you want to as well, whether you want to take a glass or mouthful of water between the McNairs and this, obviously the more you try peated whiskies, the more your palate can become not confused, but quite well developed, which again is no bad thing. But no, it's see how you think about this one. So as we're doing that, I would just ask: has anyone here in the group, have you tried any of the Meikle Toir yet, or is this your first time?
Definitely my first time.
Cool. Well, this was a great place to be, I would say. So a little bit of background as we nose taste this whiskey. Meikle Toir is, when it has been a passion project of Billy Walker since he took on Glenallachie for the last more than 5 years. So we took on the distillery in 2017. Since 2018, we've been running a peated campaign. So we run at 90% unpeated, and then we run at about 10% peated. So, for example, last year, our production, we produced around about 800,000 litres of alcohol, and then about 10% of that, so just under 80,000 litres of alcohol is peated, is what is Meikle Toir. And I think we were really interested, again, just to trial experiment with peated malt. I think Speyside is obviously very much traditionally unpeated, going obviously back in time. There's not a huge amount of peat available to use as a heat source, unlike the West Coast and Islay. And I think Billy, obviously a bit of background on Billy Walker, if you don't know. Billy Walker, as I said, 50 odd years of experience in the industry. He is probably best well known for, he's worked for various companies, worked his way as a blender for various companies. He's a chemist by trade. So he took on Burns Stewart Distillers in the 80s and the 90s. And then in the mid to late 1990s, he purchased and inherited the Benriach, the Glendronach, and the Glenglassaugh distilleries. Probably the most well-known, probably a few guys would be the Glendronach, I would say, kind of Speyside single malt. So he built these brands, again, they were mothballed, built these brands back to life. And again, all unpeated at that stage. And in 2017, Brown-Forman came a knocking, so a big multinational American drinks, spirits company. They came a knocking looking to buy the company. Billy wasn't interested in selling, but this went back and forward. And then he got given a check for, a substantial amount of money, upwards of 200+ million pounds. So I think all of us, you'd accept that amount of money when you're 72 years old. So, but at that time, Billy had a couple of private investors. He was happy to carry on, but I think the investors were wanting to cash in their chips, as they say. So I think Billy was really keen with the Benriach back then, or the Glendronach, to experiment with peated single malt, Speyside single malt, but I think he thought back then the market wasn't quite ready yet for that. Whereas nowadays, 2024, the market's much more mature, developed. People are much more interested in what they're drinking. So that's really where it came from. And we'll talk a bit more about the company in a few minutes, but we will go through this first whiskey. So Meikle Toir original, what is it? This is 5 years old, which is young for any whiskey. It's very young to have the 5 printed on the bottle. But it's going back to what we're talking about with being non-chill filtered, no color added. It is, we want to be transparent as possible. We don't want to hide anything away. And with this, we wanted to bring something that is slightly different, again, different to the market. So this is 50% ABV. So quite high, a step up, and it is 35 ppm, so phenol parts per million. The phenol count, that's how peated the whiskey is. But with this, we have done it slightly differently in that 35 ppm, which is the same for the original, the Chinkapin and the sherry, that is the phenol count that's in the glass in front of you. Usually, companies will market the ppm, the phenol count, but that's in the barley after it's been malted, after the peat smoke has been infused through it. But obviously, during your production, during your maturation, the phenol count will decrease, almost like the angel share type thing. So after we did this and matured it, we did a lot of lab tests, and we saw the phenol count was at 35, which is pretty, I would say pretty high. It's pretty punchy. But with this, we wanted to have this promote it of what is in the glass. And this is a mixture of kind of matured, mixture of 3 types of American oak. So there's ex-bourbon cask, there is American straight virgin oak, and there is a small amount of American rye barrels, which are there's a small percentage there, but I think the 3 of them together really just gives a fantastic account of initially what Meikle Toir is, what Glenallachie's spirit is. So we'll talk a bit more about the production process in a second, but what's your guys' thoughts on this? Again, all feedback is good as long as it's not negative, but no, interested to hear your guys' kind of viewpoints on it. So
This has got a lot of like a smoked salted almond note to me. Like almost like that hickory smoke kind of thing. Very interesting salinity on it, but it also has a bite to it that is not unpleasant, but it's like having like fresh ground black pepper. It's really quite interesting how the peat is coming out on this. It's just really fantastic.
It's weird because when I first noticed it and I first tasted it, I was kind of like very kind of plain. I mean, that the sweetness and the peat was completely not working for me. But I will say, now that I've had it sitting for a little bit, getting a little bit of air, it's winning me over.
cool, there we go. And yeah, Henrik, as you said there, sometimes with the whiskey, once it's in the glass, yeah, give it time, let it breathe, like what people do with the red wine. Open it up, let it breathe, and it's amazing how it can change and develop as it oxidizes.
This is because so my order thus far, before I just tried it again after they said, was the McNair, the White Heather, and then the Meikle Toir original. Now I don't think it's the Meikle Toir is in third anymore. I actually, after I got some air, I'm actually really liking this.
Cool, there we go. And yeah, just with this, obviously we talked about saying it's peated, 100% peated single malt, Speyside single malt, but again, where we are a little bit different with this is that we have used peat from not the west coast, not Islay, it's from the northeast of Scotland, near Aberdeen, an area called St. Fergus. And using this type of peat is, so the peat that comes from here is much more laid back, much more gentle. It's less medicinal, less of those iodine TCP notes that we associate with West Coast whiskies. And this is basically because the peat is just a buildup of degradation of plants, whatever is found in soils over hundreds of thousands plus years. And mainland Scotland, the northeast, there's a lot more sort of undergrowth, trees, bushes, plants, whereas the west coast is much more remote, it's much more wicked. So it's a buildup of seaweed, small amount of plants, but there's less trees, etc., etc. So that's why there's completely different notes to say this compared to your Ardbegs or your Octomores type thing. And it's a great way of maturing a whiskey, but much more delicately, to let the spirit speak for itself, but also let the peat influence play a part, definitely, but not to completely dominate. And I think the reasons for this were we were wanting to, still remain to our roots as a Speyside distillery. We're not trying to copy your Islay West Coast whiskies at all. there's room in the market for them, but we wanted to just promote what we were doing and promote kind of Speyside as a region. And we'll talk about the production process in a little bit. We'll do that with the next whiskey, but the way we've done this is something we're very, very proud about. This is the first release of any whiskey that we have been in charge with from start to finish under Billy Walker's kind of tenure, which is fantastic. Something that we're really, really proud about. I think that we should give a lot of credit to the guys who work at the distillery that are on the production side of things. Is that this is kind of the fruits of their labour. The guys in the still house and the guys in the warehouse, kind of what they've done to bring this to the fore is it's fantastic. And this is just like a great example of what is to come years down the line. Obviously, everything here that we're trying is 5-year-old, but we have held some stock back of Meikle Toir. But whether that's going to be 8 releases, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, etc., I'm not sure. No one really knows. But no, it's at the moment we're going to stick with the 5-year-old and just bring this to market a small amount. I think this got released in September in the UK. So, and I think the first shipment that came to America was released or got to America at the start of this year. So it's very new to the market. So something that's it's great. We're all very, very, very proud about. So.
Question. Well, I like it. It's a separate question. Of all the tastings that we've done, I think it's the first time that anyone from the other side of the pond has aged in X rye casks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, for the first time, why? Is it the spice note that people don't like? Like, is there too much flavor that is out there? Is it less available? Is it more expensive? I mean, bourbon, I get it. You're going for a certain note, but why going against the rye? And then as a counter to that, why go for the rye here? Is it because it's different? Sort of two questions in one, if that's fair.
No, good point, Jordan. So rye cask, as you said, not seen a huge amount in the industry, in the Scotch industry. We've used that a couple of times. We find it's a great way to mature whiskey, but because it's so different, because it imparts those spicy, bold, almost intense flavors. But if you again mature it correctly, it imparts those spicy notes, those ginger, cinnamon, I would say, with a black pepper coming in there. But if you use it, it's in a small percentage, small scale, it works in really well and fits in really well. The great thing about rye is those spicy, intense notes, but then also on the flip side, the danger of using rye is those intense kind of spicy notes that we're talking about. So it needs to be used very well. We use this, very much. It's very much in the background. I would say if you use, say, 50% rye in the makeup of this, it's going to be a completely different whiskey. So I would say some distillers are starting to use it in Scotland, whereas I think in years gone by, people were hesitant to use it because no one had done it yet. Everyone just uses traditionally bourbon. But there's some fantastic rye whiskies out there, and I think it's going back to that point that I made before about the industry being a bit more mature, more developed. So the consumer is a bit more mature, developed. They're wanting to try and trial different things, but also I would say it's for some people is it's what people can get their hands on, kind of cask wise. Rye casks are more expensive, definitely more expensive, but I would say used in the correct way is definitely worthwhile.
Less desirable, but more expensive.
Yeah, so I think less desirable because it's not traditionally used that much. And obviously, say the US Canadian market is dominated by the bourbon industry. There still is a huge amount of rye distillers out there, but there's less rye casks around. So, so I think rye whiskies going forward, rye cask going forward, you might find it every now and again, but it's not going to start to dominate the market. You're not going to see people with rye releases here, there, and everywhere. But it's something that we've used in the past, which is again, it's a great way of just experimenting. Goes back to that point about Billy Walker. He loves to trial different casks. So if he can get hold of it, he will try his goddamn best to get a hold of it, no matter what the cost. Because I think just with that, what you said there, good point about the rye, how it's something slightly different. But nowadays, especially 2024, the whole industry, where Scotch as a whole, the cask supply trade is under difficulties, I would say, as there's a lot of bourbon, obviously a lot more bourbon being produced, but there's a lot more bourbon being held back and matured in America. So there's less bourbon on the market. So people in Scotland need to mature the whiskies somehow. So I would say when I first started out with Glenallachie, which is about 4 years ago, I used to work at the distillery. A bourbon cask would be, ex-bourbon cask would be below probably £100 easily. And nowadays, you're looking at plus 250 plus, knocking on £300. So that's just showing it's basically simple supply and demand economics. So that's why people are struggling to get a hold of certain casks. So people may, this is not ourselves, but other people going down the line may use something like rye because they can get a hold of it as opposed to the traditional routes. But we're very fortunate that Billy, again, has his experience. He's got connections with the whiskey world, but with the sherry world, etc. So he's got great connections with people in the industry. So a lot of times, kind of first refusal with these casks that are offered to us. So he's very good at saying yes and kind of writing the check afterwards. So.
Can you talk about the relationship between Meikle Toir and the Glenallachie 4-year-old future release?
Yeah.
That original peated edition.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a relationship between the two? Is this basically the next edition? Is this the future that he was talking about when that came out?
So good point, Jason. So yeah, as you said, it was last year, 2023. We released sort of Billy Walker trilogy to celebrate his. Or it was 2022. Anyway, it was very recently. Anyway, I feel like I'm getting old. I can't remember what year it is, but no. A couple of years ago, we had a trilogy to celebrate Billy's 50th anniversary in the industry, something to celebrate. So with this, we had a past, a present, and a future. So the past was a 16-year-old sherry release. The present was a 16-year-old Mizunara finish, so Japanese oak. And then the future was a 4-year-old, peated whiskey, cask strength. And this was something that caught people a bit off guard. And as you said, Jason, talking about the future, this was definitely a teaser to Meikle Toir, but also, a teaser to what the future of Glenallachie. That said, we're not moving down into 100% peated production. Still for this year and all the years moving forward that we've already planned for, we're remaining at 10%. So it's something that's not going to dominate the shelves. But no, it was a little teaser to what the future holds. But I think seeing the future as well, it was just an indication of how the industry's changed, where we were confident of releasing a 4-year-old peated whiskey at cask strength a couple of years ago, where I suspect 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you did that, people would go, what the hell are you doing? This is different. But no, we just wanted to promote the distillery, what we've done, and what we're going to do down the line. And we can just touch on it now, Jason, but as I said there, Meikle Toir, it's not called Glenallachie, it's called Meikle Toir, it's something different. And with this, we were, Meikle Toir in Old Scots Gaelic means big pursuit. So this is, again, touching on moving to the future. It's Billy's big pursuit into the peated whiskey world. And we debated, and my colleagues in marketing debated it for a long time about whether to just say simply Glenallachie peated or move to a different label with a different bottle design, etc., etc. So we debated the pros and cons of both sides, but I think we wanted to really help make this label stand out itself with a different style bottle, a different name, so still with the Billy Walker signature on it. So that's really how this kind of came about, and the relationship with the 4-year-old. And yeah, I would say, as I continue to talk, hopefully not bore you at all, but as we move to the next whiskey, the Chinkapin one, I can tell you a little bit more. I can tell you about this one, but then I can tell you a little bit about exactly the production of the distillery and why we feel we stand out a little bit, and how we've done things. So, so this one, as you nose, taste, slightly different to the original, and that's 48% ABV, so slightly less, but again 35 ppm. And this one has been matured in a mixture, or initially for about three years in ex-bourbon, then finished off in Chinkapin virgin oak casks, which Chinkapin type of American virgin oak, found in kind of Missouri, that kind of northeast belt of America. So we get ours from, there's like the Ozark Mountains. That's where we tend to buy ours from. And with this, yeah, while you nose, while you taste, we can talk about the whiskey itself in a few minutes. But with this one and all of ours, this is as I said, the first distillate that we have released, that we have had we've been in charge of the whole tenure from start to finish. And this means that, yeah, we've had full control from the distillation, the maturation, etc., etc. And what we did when we took on Glenallachie was the distillery itself, that was built in the 1960s, 1968. That was when it was completed. It has the capacity of producing upwards of 4 million litres, 4.5 million litres of alcohol a year, which back then is a pretty big site. Even nowadays is a pretty substantial site. And this distillery, up until 2017, it was basically a sort of pump house for big blends, for your Chivas Regal, Ballantine's, Royal Salute type thing. So the distillery was working 24/7, just pumping out as much whiskey as possible, with a 56-hour fermentation time, which is pretty standard for the industry. But yeah, what the guys at Glenallachie, before we took a hold of it, were doing is completely different to what we were doing. They were promoting for the mass market, the blend market, which is completely different to the slightly niche single malt market. So when we took on the distillery in 2017, we trialled around how we wanted to do our production, where we wanted to aim it at. So initially, we stripped this back to 600,000 litres of alcohol was our production. We're starting to increase this a little bit more. To last year was just upwards of 800,000. This year we're looking at maybe about 1 million. And the main reason for this was we've upped our fermentation times up to minimum 160 hours, so almost 7 days of fermentation. Which, please, yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've done a lot of trials and tests to see what people have done, what their kind of minimum fermentation time is. And we've not come across anyone yet that has that standard amount of time. There could be people out there, but something that we're pretty proud about, to have kind of the longest standard fermentation time in the industry. And with this, yeah, there's many reasons to why we're doing it. It's not just so we can stake the claim to say that we're doing it the longest. We did a lot of trials and tests, and when we pitch our yeast into the fermentation vessel, obviously during this fermentation stage, there's a lot of activity in the initial 30, 40, 50 hours. And that's where you see the washback, it's frothing, it's bubbling. And that's where it's at its most active. And that's where I think a lot of people are happy once the fermentation is done after that. And that's where your sugars have been converted into alcohol, and the ABV is around 7-8% or so. We did a lot of trials and saw that it's almost like a secondary fermentation occurs in the fermentation tank, where up to about 160 hours, there's still a huge amount of interaction between the yeast and those sugars. There's still a lot of sugars for the yeast to eat at, basically. It's still very gently, very slowly. So we realized, yeah, this 160-hour mark is something that we're happy about. And the flavors, the taste that we're getting in our new mixed spirit is ester rich, your green apples, summer fruits, so pineapples, pears coming through. And yeah, we want to just be known as a bold, strong spirit initially, and as time goes on and you mature, if you have a great quality initial base spirit and you're using the best quality casks, you give yourself a good chance of making a good quality whiskey. Nothing's certain in the industry, nothing's certain with making whiskey, but if you do these steps, you're going in the right direction.
This is very reminiscent to me of something we used to make around a campfire called a banana boat.
Okay.
Take a banana, split it open, stuff it with chocolate, wrap it in foil and chuck it in the campfire while you had dinner, and then pull it out for dessert. So it's got that creamy note. It's not quite creme brulee, it's not quite banana, but that little bit of chocolate note on it and the campfire peat. This is just fantastic, and it's spice cookies and all kinds of other good stuff to do.
It's funny, Jane. I've never had what you're talking about, but yes, I recognize the flavors. But to me, this one ends too sweet.
No, it's good you guys are kind of giving your viewpoints about it, because obviously every whiskey, every bottle has their tasting notes, etc. on it, and I would say use them as a guide. Obviously, everyone is different. Everyone has a different palate. Everyone has different memories, etc. As you said, making your kind of banana boats around the campfire. If this brings up memories of that, that is great. So you become reminiscent with your whiskies of what you've tried. But I think going back to what I said before about, I think I mentioned about campfire smoke, campfire reek. This is how we're wanting the peated notes influence to kind of come through, not to dominate in some of the Meikle Tours, but to still just be there and be in the background and be very delicate. And that kind of campfire reek is a great way of talking about that. And as we said, and Henrik, as you said as well, this has been very sweet. You would think on paper, with a 5-year-old peated spirit that has been matured in bourbon and then a lot of its time being matured in chinkapin, it shouldn't be sweet. It should be a lot more, potentially could be a lot more punchy. Chinkapin virgin oak, for example, is there's no influence from different wine sherries or so it's a potentially dangerous way again of maturing a whiskey. But I think this just showcases the great way of the whiskey the whiskey itself, the base spirit, the quality of that, but also the quality of the cask. So I think I would just say this, after the end, we can have a vote of people's obviously favourites, but then a vote of people's favourite kind of Meikle Tour, as I've done a few of these events, and it's always pretty interesting, especially with the Meikle Tour, to see what people think. So
Funny you should mention that. I do have a poll prepared for later.
there we go. Sounds good. But then the good thing about doing a vote is that, but also the bad thing is, obviously, if you've tried 6 whiskies, your kind of memory of the first one is kind of it's a bit much in the background. So, but no, looking forward to that. So with that, there's no right or wrong answers. I've got my favorite, but we'll see what you guys think. So, but no, anyone else? Any other thoughts on the chinkapin or anything else about the kind of production process at all with what we're doing at Glenallachie or Meikle Tour right now?
I guess I was curious, the chinkapin, are you using chinkapin oak for the cask?
Yes, yeah. So the chinkapin oak that we are using is, the casks are being made by a cooperage over in the States, over your side of the pond, and then they're being shipped whole across into by container to the distillery. So something that we're very, very happy about. Again, going back, it's probably a more expensive way of doing things, but we're ensuring that there's that kind of great quality there. I would say a lot of people with casks will, whether it's bourbon, chinkapin, sherry or so, will ship it across to Scotland, kind of flat pack, like flat pack furniture. They put it onto a pallet, they build it up, cover it in a kind of sulfur component to protect the wood. And then when it arrives in Scotland, they will build it at a local cooperage, and then it will be then filled, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But we felt with us, and again, we're not the only ones, but if a cask, a barrel is made by a cooper on site and then it's left intact, it should remain as good as it can be. Because if you build it and then destruct it, then construct it again. You're playing with, not playing with fire, but there's potential for something to potentially go wrong. But also, if you flat pack these casks, you can get more in the back of a container, on the back of a lorry, of a truck. So we will pack them whole. So we're getting not as many on the back of a container. I think on the back of a 40-foot container, you're getting almost 200. I think it's 196 you can pack on to a 40-foot container, kind of 3 high. And they turn up at the distillery. And the way that we do it is we will plan that when these casks arrive on site, we want them filled as soon as, so we can have our filling store on site. So we have the whiskey in the vat that is ready to go. So the casks aren't sitting around for any longer. They're good to go, which is something that can be challenging, but no, we can usually get there. Sometimes the way that the roads work with shipping logistics and that type of thing, we've had, when I worked at the distillery, there was a couple of times where a container of casks would arrive on site without people really realizing. So a lorry would appear and these 200 barrels would be there, needing to be filled there and then, kind of last minute. So it just kept everyone on their toes, I would say.
Sounds like it would be a bit of a madhouse, but fun.
Yeah, sometimes it's, yeah. So no time for downing tools at all. Just keeping everyone.
And you may not know this, but how many barrels can you get if you flat pack them in a 40-footer?
Yeah, I don't know the honest question, Henrik, but it would be a lot more.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, but I also know, labor rates in Europe is actually, people can actually live on that. So, it's not cheap to reassemble them either.
No, exactly. No, it isn't. No, you're correct with that. But no, actually, it's quite a good question. I'm trying to find that out for you. How many you can get on a that will.
That's okay. I was curious if you knew, because in my mind it's probably 3-4 times as many.
Yeah,
if not more actually.
So no, but that's the way that we do it. We're more than happy the way that we ship things across, but we are very fortunate that where we are, Glenallachie, northeast, we have, it's called the Speyside Cooperage, which is an industry leader. They are maybe 2 miles from the distillery, and we've got a great relationship with them. Billy's got a great relationship. Everyone on site works really well with them. So if we have any potential issues with our casks, we can phone them up. They'll come pick them up and kind of treat them there and then. But we've also got a couple of the guys on site who work in the warehouse are kind of trained coopers, so they are able to treat and give some care and attention to certain casks if they need it. So, because no, that's the thing with these casks. If they are built and put onto the back of a container, kind of whole, you hope that the whole container is packed kind of perfectly, because if these things are loaded onto a truck and then onto a container ship and back to a truck, they're moving around, and the risk is that sometimes if 1 or 2 aren't correctly kind of packed in, they can smash around and bash around. So no, I've seen on occasion you open up the back of a container, then you see just a pile of staves just sitting there, which is not what you want. But yeah, again, this wonderful challenges and surprises appear. So
Do you reuse the barrels?
yeah, so we will use them twice, Jane. So we'll fill them once for a couple of years, and that's where you'll get your initial impact of flavour, especially using your types of different types of virgin oak, chinkapin oak, rye casks. You will impart a huge amount of flavour in that initial 12, 24 months. Then obviously when you fill them again, you'll get that flavour, but not as much of an instant hit. So you're able to mature them for a bit longer, a bit more gentle. But again, with us, yeah, we're monitoring, sampling our casks every few months once we fill them, just to see how they're doing, basically, and making sure that they're moving in the right direction. Because using not just us, but anyone, but using any type of cask and any type of active cask, first or second fill, you have an idea of how it's going to mature and how you want the whiskey to develop, but you don't know for certain. And they're, again, talking about these surprises, you can things can change and develop over time, which if we're happy and keep on top of it, we are able to adjust and steer things in the right direction. But I think a lot of people think with a whiskey, not just Meikle Toir, but anything, if it's 5 years old or 12 years old, I think a lot of people just think, oh, it just goes into barrel for that amount of time. You put it into a warehouse on its 5th or 12th birthday, you ditch it and empty it and off it goes. So no, there's a lot more kind of care and attention goes on kind of behind the scenes. So but yeah, and I would say with that, I think a lot of people see sampling as the ideal, the dream job. You get to see what is happening. You get to maybe put some in your pocket to take home and enjoy on a Friday night. But if you get sent samples hundreds at a time, it can get a bit tiresome over and over and over again. So that was when I was working at the distillery. We were doing that a lot. But what I really enjoyed was you actually got to see how unique and different every single different cask is and how it is maturing. But you also couldn't cut any corners, because some people would have joked that back in the day, if you had to get 10 samples from 10 bourbon barrels all next to each other, you think, oh, the blender wouldn't be able to tell the difference between any of them. But dealing with Billy Walker, if you try to do that, he would know exactly that you've tried to shortchange him and get the samples off on one barrel to save you some work. So it's a good way. It's a great way of doing it, and the best way of keeping on top of your whiskey is by going through our kind of rigorous kind of sampling program. So, and also you may get to enjoy if a sample bottle slips into your pocket, you can get to enjoy it that evening at home or at the weekend. So all in the name of research. So.
Or at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. There we go. But no, I think if we're all good with the Chinkapin one, I would say let's move on to the next whiskey, which is the Glenallachie Sherry one. Which this very similar to the Chinkapin in the way that it's 48% ABV again, 35 ppm. So ABV's exact same, ppm, the phenol count is the exact same. This one has been matured initially in ex-bourbon barrels, again, same story as the Chinkapin, then finished off in a mixture of the Billy Walker Glenallachie kind of house style of Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso sherry. And I would say that this Billy Walker is known for his sherry styles of whiskey, his kind of sherry core range, whether that's with Glendronach or Glenallachie now. So this is one that we wanted to bring to the fore, to bring as part of the range of the 4 different SKUs, but just to really showcase what you can do again with that sweet peat reek, but those notes that you get from your bourbon barrels, but also from your different types of sherry casks. And with this, I would say, and with all the sherry releases that we do, when we're using PX and Oloroso, we're using the PX and Oloroso kind of to work against each other, because the great thing about Pedro Jimenez is that it's great. It's hugely sweet. So you're getting your notes of your chocolate, raisins, whether it's cinnamon coming through, mocha, that type of thing. But that's the great thing about PX Pedro Jimenez. But the danger of that is it is that sweet, it can become too sickly, too overpowering. So if you use those sherry notes, which are much more, I say, laid back, kind of hazelnut, there's raisins in there as well, but that will work against the PX and kind of rein it back in, make sure it doesn't get too carried away. So there was somebody, it was funny, someone who was at a tasting was saying the PX is like the annoying kind of hyper younger brother that's a bit full on and a bit too keen to go, and then the Oloroso is a bit the mature kind of older sibling that reins everything kind of back in. So but no, give this one a taste, give it a nose, see what you think. Really interested to hear your viewpoints on that. And yeah, Jason, pretty much dead on with Glasgow, Edinburgh. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting cigar boxes and figs. It's like cigar nose, a little bit on the palate, a little bit of fig. It's something sweetish. I mean, I can't quite figure it out. Fig was the closest I could come to, but I like it.
And again with this, we wanted this to obviously be be sherry, but we don't want the sherry to completely dominate, and we want the peat to be in there. So you run the risk of with these active casks, active whiskey, you don't want it to be one to dominate the other. So yeah, it's just a great example of what we're doing. And with this, even though it's peated, it's a great example, I think, of this one, of showcasing the quality of the Glenallachie spirit, but of what's to come, in the years to come, kind of down the line. So
it's bouncing off my palate in such a magical, like a pretty great way. The smokes kind of lingers in the middle. The spices are kind of just going down the back of my throat. I am a bourbon guy first and foremost, and sort of will always be. But every once in a while, when Glenallachie 10 years sort of my go-to, as I've said many times, especially certain people are here. But this just reminds me of why. It's just like, oh, if I want a Scotch, this is what I want. I'm really into it. If this is where you go, I want to go there with you.
Yeah. No, good to hear. No, thank you for that. But no, I think this release out of the four of them jumped out to people because, as you said, a lot of people associate Glenallachie with 10-year cask strength, the 12 and the 15, those sherry whiskies. So they jump at this because they're interested, and it's a nice, again, like just as you touched on, a nice introduction to peated Speyside, peated Glenallachie. But I think with this and all the whiskies, 5 years old is pretty young for all whiskies. And I think the worry for us, or the potential issue, is if we promoted, obviously we proudly promoted this, it's 5 years old and higher ABV, 48 and 50%. If the spirit is not of really good, say high quality, the initial notes that you're just going to get on the nose and on the taste is of that ethanol, that burn. But you don't, I would say, I personally don't get that. You can tell it's there, it's lively, it's vibrant, but there's not that alcoholic aftertaste or that burn in the nostrils that you really don't want from any whiskey, I would say.
It's interesting. I get there was a point initially I got like a really dark coffee, but now it's like, as it's evolving, it's getting to be even more molasses, like, because it's getting really clingy and that from dark coffee into more sweet. So it's that combination, and that the physical sensation is really evolving into a dark molasses with that smoke, with a dark smoked molasses to it as well. It's great.
No, thank you for that, Jason. Anyone else? Any other feedback at all before we move on to the last but by no means least kind of whiskey? So, no, I think we're good to go. So, no, as I said, this is the final one. But yeah, we can have a discussion after the last whiskey and see which one's everyone's favourite was, etc. But yeah, I'm not going to be rushing away anywhere anytime soon. So any questions, please, as I said, please just ask. I'm awake now, so I may as well enjoy the day. So, but no, this last one is something that's a little bit different. This is called the Meikle Toir, the Turbo, the 2023 edition. And you'll get with this on the nose, on the taste. It's a little punchy. There's something different going on in there. And this one is, as you nose it, as you taste it, is 50% ABV, but this one is ppm 71, so more than double what was in the others. So this one is, if you're a peat head, this one is definitely the one for you. So, and this one is it's matured in, again, we'll talk about the scarcity of it, but this one is matured in a mixture of just virgin oak casks and then Oloroso hogsheads. So virgin oak casks, they hold 200 litres, and hogsheads hold 250 litres. And this, it is called the Turbo, as the way we've done our production. Hopefully it doesn't sound too confusing. During the production, you usually have your usual spirit cuts. So that's when you're happy, when your spirit levels are where they are to where you want to take them. So whether that's between the mid 50s up to 70% or so, for example. But with this, so that's when you're collecting your spirit, and then you go and you fill it at maybe generally around, with the Meikle Toir, we're looking at around between 63.5% ABV and 68.5 ABV. But with this one, we did a lot of research, and again, a lot of kudos to the guys, Philip and John in the still house. They did a lot of trials and experiments because they knew that the phenol count in the actual spirit, there's a spell during the kind of the usual spirit run, was where the phenol count really jumps up for a really small amount of time before it really decreases. And this is between when the whiskey's between about 58 and 60% ABV. So just when the charge is happening, and after that, the ppm level just decreases massively. So if you miss it, you miss it. So you have a really small window amount of time to collect this turbo, I would say. And this is the example of that. And to show you how really scarce this is, as I said, I think at the start, of talking about Meikle Toir, is Glenallachie, we've produced about 800,000 litres of spirit, and then there is about 80,000, about less than that, is of peated. And then within this, the amount of whiskey that's been matured for the turbo is 3 virginal barrels and then 5 Oloroso hogsheads. So only 8 casks completely, which totaling, I would say, 1,600 total litres, which, yeah, it's tiny, it's very small, which is great, it's exciting, but also with this, the downside of it is that it has become so rare. So I've seen a lot of very recent stuff about people in the United States who managed to get their hands on a bottle, which is great. So I would say with this one, if you do see it in your local shelf or whatever, I say definitely get your hands on it, because yeah, I say once it's gone, as we are releasing this in a kind of batch, almost like a batch system, so an annual release, because the ppm levels of the turbo will be different every single year. So the 2024 release will be, yeah, it's very similar, but will be slightly different, and in years gone by will be slightly different. So but no, we want this one to be punchy, to be bold, to be strong. It's a bit of fun, I would say. It's a bit of fun, and yeah, you may as well have that when you're at work, when you're trying to create whiskies. So what's your thoughts on this, on the turbo?
I get a lot of burnt sugar and nuttiness to it. So it's just, and a lot of and then late palate is when a lot of the peat hits. A lot of that smokiness is it's the burnt sugar, the nuttiness, and then right at the end, then it really just, the peat really builds towards the end, and it's again that smokiness, not not iodine, not Band-Aid. It's that smoky salinity that I love about it.
My brain can't quite wrap their head around the peat and the sweetness at the same time.
Okay. No, that's
and that's a me issue. I'm fully aware of that, but
yeah. But no,
it's good. My first instinct was to put the turbo as my favorite, and then the more I thought about it, I moved it down to second place. It's good. My brain has to get used to all that sherry cask and peat at the same time.
Well, no, I would say, Henry, it just means you need to go back and try it another time and see what you think. So
no, it's funny. I was literally thinking I may actually have to get a hold of Vadim and have to get another set, because they confuse me.
That's
not
okay. Yeah, not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Well, no, with this, you'll have seen and heard that with the turbo and the original 50% ABV, and then the sherry and the Chinkapin are 48, so slightly lower. Yeah, slightly higher than your normal, but with the way we did this, we did a lot of again tests in the blending room to see how the whiskies were during the pilot samples at the different ABVs. So we tried them at 46, each of them, all four of them at 46, 48, 50, and slightly higher. And we found that, yeah, for whatever reason, the Chinkopin and the sherry really stood out best at 48. We found the 50 was just maybe a bit too punchy for them. But then on the flip side, again, which is really the fascinating thing about it, is we found the original and the turbo really stood out at that 50% mark as opposed to the 48 like the rest. So just a little bit difference just going on behind the scenes, which I think is quite nice. But again, it can be quite confusing with people. I've had a lot of people kind of question saying, well, how come this one's 46, this one's 48, this one's 50? So basically we've had 3 samples of each, and I think Billy and the production team they choose which one works best. But also on that note, within the office, within the company, with us, we're independently ran, so we don't have a big board of directors dictating us what direction we should be moving in. But I would say with us, Billy, he has his blending team, and they'll make a lot of the decisions, obviously. But when Billy has different pilot samples of different ABVs or different strengths or so, or that type of thing, he'll bring these into the office, and then in a morning, sometimes even a Monday morning, so 8 o'clock when everyone's in, he'll sit down the whole team. So whether you work in marketing, sales, shipping, finance, admin assistant, you'll sit everyone around the table and get people's feedback of what their thoughts are, because Billy knows that he has his nose, he has his taste, his palate. He knows that's not the whole kind of marketplace, which I think is quite a cool thing to be a part of. So you're able to give your viewpoint and feedback, and he definitely takes it on board. But it's funny, but sometimes quite surreal that sometimes you have then someone who works in the bottling department is having a debate with our somebody in logistics about which ABV they prefer, or which sample they prefer with a bit more PX or a bit less Oloroso. So there's a lot of different viewpoints and arguments going on. So, but no, I really like that fact about it and about the company.
So I have thoughts on this one, but I don't want to forget to get a photo. If everybody could come back on camera, if you're not already there, and raise a glass to Andrew for getting up at the crack of dawn for us, and Steve for setting this up. Thank you both so much for everything. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
I think I got one. Anyway, it's sort of like a smoky malt blanc. I don't know if you know the dessert. It's a French thing that it's like a mess of chestnut puree and sponge or whipped cream and meringue, and it's got that sort of nutty thing going on, but it's also got all the smokiness. And I was kind of losing the nut flavor there because the peat is kind of taking over for me, but it's not unpleasant. I mean, I love that all of these are not Band-Aid.
Yeah.
That they're so approachable compared to the first peated whiskey I ever tried that felt like I was licking a tire. So these are marvelous.
I mean, if that's what you're into, that's absolutely,
It's funny. I never thought I was going to ever utter the words, but I miss the Band-Aid. I miss the iodine. I miss that. I'm not saying these are bad at all, because they're not. But it's again, it's one of those. Some days you want the Band-Aid and stuff. Other days you don't. Right. So it's definitely there's a time and place for all of them. I was wondering, so I noticed all of these are 5-year-olds. Are you planning on releasing any with an older age statement, or is that kind of what you're sticking to right now? Or is it just because one of those where you're relatively new in the market under this brand, or restarted, and you need to get something out? What's your plan?
Yeah, so at the moment, our plan is for the next foreseeable future to remain with just 5-year-old kind of expression, but we are holding stock back. So there's still stock maturing, and Whether that will be released as an 8, as a 10, as a 12, I'm not sure. That's been kept top secret in Billy's kind of whiskey Bible that he has. So yeah, so the foreseeable future, I've seen kind of plans for 2025, 2026, etc. And yeah, it's still going to be initially a 5-year-old, and then in the years to come, we will see what happens. So keep your keep your eyes peeled, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I will say they don't drink like a 5-year-old, or
Mhm.
what I would have expected a 5-year-old to drink like. So
But no, I would say the risk with this is if we released everything as a 5-year-old, kind of got rid of all of our infantry, then you have no older stock to develop and mature over time, because all whiskies, you have it, as I think I said earlier, you have an idea of how things will mature, but if you don't do it, you don't know. Whether that's doing stuff with Meikle Toir, or as we talked earlier, using rye casks. If you don't buy the casks and trial or use these styles of peat, then yeah, you don't know for sure. And yeah, as you said as well, with this, it's not your Band-Aid or licking a tire or whatever, which is, if that's what you're into, that's absolutely fine. But I would say that was, we're not trying to be, as I said, your West Coast Isla. We think there's room in the market for different styles of peated styles of whiskey. But I would also say, I think I would like to say, this is me just speaking, but I would like to think that the company in the years to come would start to do experiments using different styles of peat. So you could have say like a Meikle Toir release with mainland peat versus West Coast peat, and just to really see that influence of what the peat actually gives. So no, it's not. I wish, since I said that, I wish I could bring out a bottle, a secret sample to you all. But no, it's something that I hope that would be quite interesting to do kind of years down the line. So
In case it isn't obvious, I launched the poll so everybody can jump on and vote for your favorite. Alas, I cannot because I'm launching the poll.
we need to ask you after, Jane, what your favorite was then.
Yeah, no, I have an opinion.
There we go.
Gene likes anything rye, so we know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think.
That's now you say that. I mean, so the rye fans. I mean, and God bless you for being rye fans. I mean, I feel sorry for you, but that's okay.
Jane is not a rye fan, to be clear. I may be, but Jane's not. She hates rye. It's a joke.
No, I hate rye. So I'm on Team Jane on this one. But I was curious. Do you guys get the rye in the one that was aged in a rye cask? Because I did not necessarily get that.
Oh, I think that the rye in that cask was used at, I mean, not to be like too like esoteric about it, but like it was just like a color on the palate used to make it. Like, I don't think that the purpose was to feel rye. I feel like that rye cask was used to achieve a component to it that we experienced.
Right.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I did not drink that and go, rye, what's up? I taste the mint, or I taste the whatever at all. It was definitely like somebody much better than me at blending going, I'm going to use this note in there.
Yeah, I need a little bit of this, so I'm going to do this.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But I did just buy that the Glen Alky 10-year rye because
There we go.
I'm that kind of person. Sorry.
There we go.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I think it's interesting because I didn't get as much of a rye note, but I did get, there's a little backbone underneath everything else from that rye cask. I thought it was very supportive of the rest of the flavors. It was really quite interesting.
because what I found is the sweetness for some rye is what I can't handle.
Yeah, I don't think rye to me is not sweet at all. It's just, I don't like the grain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like rye anything. So
Neither do I.
Yeah. I find it interesting that there are, over the hundreds of things that we've done in the last almost 4 years, that I might have actually tipped onto a second hand for the individual bottles that I have liked. So I actually found one a couple of weeks back and I was kind of stunned. I'm like, wow, okay, now I like 6 of them. Okay. So that,
Evidently, we're gonna have to get some I hate rye shirts made for you guys.
Yeah.
no. So curious to know what you think might have been our favorite for the evening, Andrew.
There we go. I will say I'm only allowed one answer, not two. Yeah. I would go with let's say the Chinkapin Toir.
That's not a bad guess.
Not a bad guess at all, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to see that it was one of 3,
There we go.
all tied, 3 votes apiece.
Interesting.
Everybody got a vote though, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I was good. As I said earlier on, when I've done especially just Meikle Toir tastings, but kind of Glenallachie portfolio peated tastings, you do ask people to vote or make a poll or whatever. And I've not had one where one bottle has missed out completely. There's always something there for someone. I think I've been to a couple of tastings where where I've been drinking at them and you go, you've had 4, 5, 6 whiskies and you go, there's one complete standout and that's it. And then you raise your hand and you realize the whole room has done that as well. You feel kind of bad for the other whiskies. You feel like they've kind of missed out. So no, nice to hear there that at least all of them has got at least one vote. So no, I appreciate it. We need to come back then and do one between White Heather, the Chinkapin, and the Turbo. So see who the real winner is. So another tasting.
Yeah.
So am I the only one that thought the 12-year, the McNair was the best?
Apparently.
I was, for what it's worth, Henrik, I was on the fence for a little bit.
No, I was too. I mean, my second one was probably the Turbo, and my third one was the Chickapin. So they were very close.
Henrik, you proved again that Islay is your go-to whiskey because there's 2 Islay distilleries in this McNair's.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes,
exactly.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Andrew will not disclose it, but I'm pretty sure. And I forgot to take my AK-47 to ask him
You
politely.
do that next
to
time.
that, but
Yeah.
it's 2 Islay distilleries.
So yeah, I was going to say, yeah, Henrik, you're not hiding anything. You're not hiding your allegiances there. So yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, when I tried the Heather, I was just kind of, oh, this is interesting. But when I tried the McNair, I go, oh, this is yummy. But it would be boring if we all like the same stuff.
Exactly. And no, I would say just what type of thing that what you guys do, where you try and meet up is a lot and do. I'm guessing try different styles, different types of whiskies. That's the best way to be. Because obviously I sit on the Scotch fence. I'm from Scotland, work in the industry. I'm from Speyside originally. Dad grows barley that goes into whiskey. So you'd think, a lot of people just think all I drink is Scotch and that is it, and I don't care about anything else in the world. But no, there's some great whiskies out there from all 4 corners of the earth, and the best way to even educate yourself on it is to try different styles, different distilleries, new and old, etc., etc. That's the best way to be, and just discuss it amongst friends. So what you guys do is it's really refreshing to see that this is still kind of going on. As there we go, the dance off. Only one can win. It's great what you guys are doing.
Wow, that's.
I know, it's tough making you pick one of those 3.
No, to me, it's between the Chickapin and the Turbo. So I'm gonna say the Turbo.
This is part of my
Overlord.
overlord duties, y'all.
Sam, is there any more Turbo in the country?
And I'm not here to tease you, but that's all we have left.
Without
So you're
seeing
welcome.
the vote.
You're welcome to come. I'll try to save it. I'm
Yeah,
gonna just use it for some special guests.
See, you have a few more behind you that we can share, so.
Oh, yeah, a few, yeah. That's with Hendrix taste, especially the ones from Islay there, yeah, but we have some nice Glenallachie single cask expressions and some 15-year-old Scottish oak. Yeah, trying to shrink it because I don't drink as much as it's there, so I need some help, guys. Need some help.
You're in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, exactly. Bay Area, yeah, San Francisco.
Yeah, you're on the way. Yeah. There we go.
People are pretty-
Still very close.
Still very close. And there's only one winner because there's an odd number of people. I think this is hilarious. It's pretty close to the last one. So Chinkapin took it by one.
Go. Good to see. So Chinkapin's the winner.
For the moment, I'm sure people will change their mind once they revisit their glasses, but I thought it was funny and I should have a dance off for the
Yeah.
bit here.
That's the thing. We could all speak again, say this time next week, next month, next year, go through the 6 different whiskies in a different season, different day, whatever, different time of day. And yeah, it could be completely different votes. That's the great thing about whiskies. It doesn't just always remain the same. There's always something different and something developing. So
And
I think
I can be bribed if anybody wants me to change from the Chinkapin.
no, I think this is probably the first whiskey just overall where I have realized how much of a difference it has from pouring the sample to drinking the sample versus letting it sit for 5 minutes and how much change just that alone does. I thought that was actually very interesting.
A question on the melting. Are you sourcing or you have a melting floor?
So we don't have a malting floor on site. We use our local maltings that's maybe 10 miles or so from the distillery. So I think nowadays within the industry, it's pretty rare for people to have their own kind of maltings on site, just the way the industries increase with their production, etc. So now I think on Speyside there is Balvenie have one and Benromach have one. Not Benromach, Benriach have one. Their own kind of floor maltings, which some of the malt that they will use will come from there, but yeah, there's still truckloads coming in from kind of the big industrial sites. So
You guys have any super special things you're working on that you can allude to, if not actually tell us about?
there's always is the easy answer to that.
And I guess the question is, do we have to stop the recorder before you say that?
Not at all. Not at all. There's always something going on, which is the good thing with, or exciting thing with Glenallachie, that Billy Walker, he never tires. So there's always something going on behind the scenes, which is something that we're not all very excited about. So I would say if we manage to get together in a few months' time or next year, we'll be able to talk about some other exciting projects that we've been doing. So.
Projects.
So is Meikle Toir here to stay then? Is this a line that's here to stay? And then from this core 4 that we've had today, you said the turbo is going to be back in different batches. Is the same going to apply with the Chinkapin, the sherry one, or are there going to be variations in casks?
So at the moment, it's just going to remain the 4, with the turbo being the exception, just being slightly different. Just the only difference will be the phenol count. That'll be the only difference, where some people, if you try the 2 of them together, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference, whereas some, they pick out the difference completely. So I think we've done this as again, to carry on that bit of fun. It's a bit of a game to pick out the differences there. So no, I would say, yeah, it's definitely here to stay, but on that, say, limited scale, that 10% of production type thing. So that's for the foreseeable, I would say, Jason.
Anybody else have more questions, more thoughts? Like we all ran out of gas.
No, I mean it's one of those.
Wait,
It's
sorry,
always nice to sit on a Thursday night and drink some whiskey.
sorry, just looking at what Sam just posted mission. So the price points, which we haven't talked about, is 65, $70 for most of these. Is that real?
Mhm.
Because that's insane. I missed the beginning, so you might have said at the beginning, but that's phenomenal.
No, I was with this. I mean, with the UK, our SP was around about the £50 mark. We wanted to with this. Yeah, I think make it accessible to drinkers. And with this, I think on paper, again, as I said, you have a 5-year-old single malt peated spirit with a new bottle, new label. You want to kind of entice people in, and scare them away.
Oh no, I'm complimenting you on it. That's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah.
This is
So
phenomenal.
no, we were I would say very aware of that. We wanted to make a price point that made it inviting, sort of appealing to people. So
Out of curiosity, it's not on here, but the turbo, what would that go? Like if I found it, what's like the MSRP-ish rate?
So the turbo, I mean, in the UK, the turbo RSP is the same as the rest.
Okay.
So it just means the scarcity of it. It means that some people have kind of upped this price, but we wanted to bring it as in line with the others. So
Very
Good
cool.
luck finding it.
yeah.
No,
It's true,
yeah,
Jordan.
fair enough. Fascinating. These are great.
Yeah, we positioned it as 75 RRP recommended retail price nationwide, but Mission, they work on the lower margins, so this is actually a great price. That's what I wanted to.
Even
put it on
75 would be a
screen.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I would say we're seeing the UK now. Sadly, the secondary market always online auctions always play a part, and people, when they think something's rare, something is people think that it has a secondary value. We saw for a while the turbo was selling for above 200, kind of £200, kind of 4 times the value. But thankfully, that's starting to fall down because I think people have realised that it's probably a bit too steep for it. But we want all of our whiskey when it's bottled and released to be opened, maybe not straight away, but save it for a rainy day or an occasion. So but sadly we can't do anything about the flippers or the online auctions type thing. They're part of the industry, but we're hoping that things like this get to the right hands. So
I was curious, the white heather, is there another expression in that line, or is that pretty much that's it, a one in?
So we have maybe a passing by, but we have a white heather 15 and then a white heather 21. So that's the two kind of age grades. So the 21 is
the McNair similar then, that it's got maybe 1 or 2 expressions in the line?
Exactly. Okay. And so the white heather 21 is very much it's in a kind of a big kind of gift box. It's very much for kind of gifting season type thing, kind of sort of higher end kind of packaging type thing.
Okay, and do you need my address to send me one of those, or?
If you send me a private message and we'll see what we can do. Yeah.
Awesome.
But the McNair, you said you had a 10-year cast strength, the 12, and then the 21, right?
Yes.
So I like seeing old labels come back. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. So no, I hope with this we've gone through 6 pretty unique and different whiskies in their own instance, but really nice. Again, great idea to bring them all together. Because I think a lot of people, again, when they talk about Billy Walker Glenallachie, it's all about the unpeated kind of core range sherry styles. But with this, it's something they're moving down. So no, been an absolute pleasure to kind of go through the 6 of them this evening. And hopefully you've learned a little bit from me. I've not bored you for almost 2 hours, so no, appreciate it.
This has been fun.
Yeah.
No, I would say it's worthwhile getting up for. So if it wasn't out, I would have just said my internet was bad and gone back to bed. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Appreciate
This has
you
been
getting up with the
fantastic.
sparrows.
Yeah. But no, I would say, yeah, just from our side, no, appreciate your guys' support and yeah, an interest in the company. It's great to see, and yeah, no, thank you again, Sam, for kind of arranging this, getting samples out to the correct people, and yeah, definitely keen to do something like this in the months kind of to come. That would be definitely on our list to do. So. Sadly, I wish I could say that I could get Billy Walker to join, but he's hard enough as it is to get a hold of. But yeah, even at 3 a.m, I mean, he's probably wide awake just now working, but we'll see what I can do.
That would be the dream.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
And-
maybe we just have to stay up late, and you have to bring a laptop to the distillery or whatever.
There we
I
go.
mean,
Exactly.
we game.
Yeah, yeah.
We committed to this science.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. All for research.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we want to thank you for making yourself available this time of night
Not at all. No worries.
for you.
Absolutely.
And as you see, this is a great group. You know, we had 6 whiskeys. All of them had peat, and they handled it like heroes. So thank you to all of you guys. You're a great group.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody for showing up today and joining us with Andrew and Sam and Meikle Toir. I'm going to stop the recording. By no means am I closing the room. You're all welcome to hang out and chat. Something we like to do afterwards. So thank you once again.
And we want to thank you, Vadim. I'm sorry, Jane.
You're very welcome. I'm
ahead.
sure Vadim would appreciate the thanks as well.